I had a band in elementary school in 6th grade called Feedback.
She doesn't like me, and I'll say it again. She doesn't like me, and I'll tell all my friends.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Where was that name birthed from?
It was from getting feedback from the amp of like plugging a guitar in, and it just sounds bad. And someone's like, Feedback. Whoa, that's a good name.
Without me.
Oh, because there's a double meaning for feedback.
Yeah, it wasn't like we write songs. We want to hear what you guys have to think about it. Like that wasn't.
You're like, we do not want feedback. We're in 6th grade.
Yeah, it was more like we make hot rock and roll noise.
On today's episode, please welcome back Morgan Evans as we discuss the topic of feedback. Not my band from 6th grade, just the idea of it in general. Receiving feedback, giving feedback. Why is it so hard for creatives to deal with feedback?
I physically want to vomit.
Welcome to Create.Repeat.
Voices in my head telling me it's now or never. Just turned 31, I can't deny the pressure. Even at my best, I know that I can do better. Running out of time, but how the hell can you measure?
I want the Vanilla Ice story on camera.
We'll tell the Vanilla Ice story later.
Okay.
That's that. Okay, well, hey, welcome to another episode.
Is it time? Are we really doing
We're
this?
doing it.
Oh.
Let's just get into it.
Let's just go.
Yeah, how are you? It's been a while since I saw you. Just
I
kidding. We
know.
live together. I talk to you every single day.
I know we do, but I haven't sat at this table with you in a minute, and I missed you.
Yeah, I missed you too.
I came yesterday and I watched you interview people, and it was so cool. But I
Yeah.
had FOMO.
Yeah, well, now we're just like, breaking the fourth wall and people know how we're recording this now.
Oh, oopie.
We'll just cut that.
What did I say?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was like, did I say something bad?
No, I'm just messing around with you.
It's us again.
Yeah, it
Hi.
is.
Hi.
So today we kind of wanted to change things up a little bit and just talk about one specific topic and then have some questions that we have written down that we have crowdsourced from friends and maybe just from ourselves, and we're pretending that we
Rapid fire
crowdsourced.
questions.
Yeah, we want to do a little Q&A with each other and
Yeah.
just try something out, try something new.
Try something new. Keep
Yeah.
it young. Keep it fresh. Keep people on their toes. And by people, I mean us. We need to stay on our toes.
We need to stay on our toes. Just work those calves. All right. Do you want to talk, like, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about feedback is not failure.
Feedback is not failure.
I feel like feedback got a bad rap.
Really?
At some point, I think that this is true for every artist. You got some terrible feedback. You took it super personal. And now anytime someone's like, is there room for feedback? I physically want to vomit.
Is there any person out there that can take feedback well? I think it's something so hard. Even if you are a trained professional person that's worked for 50 years, I feel like any bit of unwanted criticism or feedback is really hard to deal with. Every time, for me at least, it feels like it pierces my soul.
I know, but I feel like it wasn't always like that. Like, I guess, like, is school a place where you expect feedback? So you're always like, I think, especially like in acting school, I just always assumed I'm like, I suck, I'm terrible, where's the feedback? But I think the second you graduate, you feel like you are a real human now and don't need feedback.
Or it's just like, it's when you love something, when you like doing it. When you're in school, you're told to do something. It's like anything. If you're assigned something to do and then you get feedback on it and your heart's not really into it, it's kind of easy to get feedback. It's when you like create something that you really work hard on.
Artists and feedback, it feels like a sword piercing my stomach.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about, how to deal with feedback, the worst parts of it. Is there a positive side? Is there a way to...
We could for sure change our perspective. It's just if you want to or not. And maybe we'll walk through that all together.
Yeah, so to begin this episode, we both feel like feedback is terrible. And hopefully by the end of it, we'll have some constructive feedback for each other about how to be better at taking feedback.
Maybe you need some... How many times can we say feedback?
I know. A little interesting fact, I had a band in elementary school in 6th grade called Feedback.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Where was that name birthed from?
It was from getting feedback from the amp of like plugging a guitar in, and it just sounds bad. And someone's like, Feedback. Whoa, that's a good name.
Oh, because there's a double meaning for feedback.
Yeah, it wasn't like we write songs. We want to hear what you guys have to think about it. Like that wasn't.
You're like, we do not want feedback. We're in 6th grade.
Yeah, it was more like we make hot rock and roll noise. That's feedback.
And feedback performed at a talent show. Was that our only performance?
Yeah, we had like a one night only performance. We tried to get it going after, but then we went to middle school and it just changes. Your body goes through changes. You're like, I don't want to stand in front of people and sing anymore.
Did it have to do with anyone else that performed at this talent show that maybe crushed your soul?
No, the talent show, we killed it.
Was it? Okay.
You want me to tell that story real quick?
You know what? Just bless us with a story.
So there's a talent show, as we just established, and I had a band of me and my 2 bandmates, Austin and Thomas.
So sick.
And we were just like a 3-member band, and we were ready to do the audition for the talent show, and we wrote this original song called Doorbell Ditch.
Whoa.
And it was about doorbell ditching a girl you liked. It
That's
was really,
hot.
it was good. It was good stuff. When you're in 6th grade, like doing a doorbell ditch, man, that was ultimate flirting.
Were
now,
you leaving notes on the doorstep? or
no,
is this
you just doorbell and
ditch?
you run away.
Does she know that you doorbell ditched?
The fictitious girl in the song?
I didn't know if you were like doing this every weekend.
You would like doorbell ditch a girl if you liked them, but it's just because you're too afraid to talk to them.
Oh.
So we wrote a song about it,
Okay.
and it was terrible.
Oh.
And we performed the song, and we were playing, double guitars, had someone on drums, and it went as bad as you could
Were
think.
you playing guitar?
Yeah, playing a guitar and singing, and then my friend Austin was also playing a guitar and singing, and then Thomas on the
Everyone.
drums.
Okay.
And we performed it, and they let us move on to the talent show, but my 6th grade teacher was the judge doing the auditions at the time, and he told us like, hey, like he gave us a little feedback. One of those was, hey, Austin, you shouldn't sing. It was pretty blunt like that. You shouldn't sing. It should just be Zach, and don't do the double guitars because you're playing the same exact chords and it sounds not
it's
great.
just like noise. Okay.
And so we're like, okay, great. And then another band goes on.
Okay. This
and,
is the moment.
And it's another 3-person band.
Stressed
and
out.
they have the same thing going on.
Okay.
And they get up there and they absolutely crush it. What song do they sing? How You Remind Me by Nickelback as a 6th grader. Never
Whoa.
made it as a wise man. Like he was kind of doing like a little like I got some
raspy
I got some
thing.
whiskey in my throat, you
Okay,
know?
okay.
And a 6th grader going like, been down to the bottom of every bottle. Like
Wow.
it was really good.
Okay.
And it was like they
Okay.
recruited the kid from band that
Of
could play
course
all the
they
instruments
did.
to play drums
Damn
for them.
those band kids.
And the main singer, he was in choir. They had
Of
it all
course,
going.
They had a stacked roster. Okay.
Yeah, so we were really in our heads about
Sure.
that. And so the day before the talent show, we decided Doorbell Dish sucks and we
Okay.
need to change the song. So we wrote a brand new song. At the time, there's this girl I liked, and I told her I liked her, and she didn't like me back because her best friend had a crush on me.
Oh, sorry, a fly just flew in my eye.
You okay?
Am I okay?
Are you okay? You tell me.
Yes, I'm well.
Okay. Okay.
Onward ho.
But yeah, so I wrote this song about this girl not liking me. It was called She Doesn't Like Me. I was really creative back then. And we wrote this entire song, and we go, and it's the day of the talent show. And I asked Mr. Galante, my 6th grade teacher, hey, we changed our song. Is that okay? And he's like, no. The whole point of audition is so you guys don't like cuss in front of parents.
Okay.
And we can't check this to make sure it's good. So you just have to sing the song that you did at the audition.
Oh my
And we're
gosh.
freaking out, and we didn't feel confident about the song. We were worried that we were going to get upstaged by mini Nickelback. And so we decided that we were going to do the new song anyway.
Oh my
And
gosh, that's punk rock.
It was punk rock. And so we get
Wow.
up there and we do the song, and I got to say, we brought the house down. It was awesome.
Mini
and
Nickelback.
but I
Rooted
remember
in wheat.
Yeah, but I remember like my opening lyrics, it starts without any music yet. I start and I
Oh.
messed up immediately.
Really?
The first line, and remember, I'm in 6th grade, was every day it rains red roses. Every day it rains red roses. Every day a new heart breaks. Those were the opening lyrics. Pretty deep stuff. But then I remember right when we started, the curtains open, I just go, every day the rose. Oh, dang it. And then I start and then go, and then it was just like, hey, the train's taken off. We performed. I'm like rocking out, doing stuff I've never done before. And it went really, really well.
Did people think you messed up on purpose in the beginning?
Well, so then the Nickelback band goes after us, and they honestly,
Choke
I feel
City?
kind of bad.
Choke
They
City.
choked. The drum set kind of fell apart during it. And everybody thought that they were trying to
Been
copy
there.
us. They were trying to copy us by pretending to mess up. And they
Okay.
just didn't go over well.
Okay.
And everybody loved us. Like it was the first time I had like girls screaming for me. It was crazy. And then the girl that didn't like me came up to me and told me that she did like me, and she became my first girlfriend ever. She was my first kiss. Sorry, not to like. Okay. But
It's okay.
yeah, but so
I'm secure.
but that was an amazing opportunity. And then Mr.
Wow.
Galante came up to us and he was like, "Hey, Evans." He's like, "That was so rock and roll.
Whoa,
Good on you."
bro.
And that was like a moment in my life where things
Mr.
changed. So that's
Galante's-
when feedback changed my life. It might not be the way that you're hoping I'm talking about it, but we did get feedback that Austin shouldn't sing, which is the correct call.
True.
No offense.
Yep.
And that
You know what you also got? I think there's time to apply feedback and then times to go with your gut. And you said, we're doing this damn thing.
exactly. And
Okay.
naming the band Feedback. So if you want to check us out on Spotify, we're not there.
Nothing will be there.
No, there'll be nothing there.
Nothing will
Sorry,
be there.
she doesn't like me is not available to stream. But all right, so do you want to just kind of go through these questions? Did you write something down? What
I
is
wrote
this?
something down.
Why
I'm
don't you
just
read
gonna
it?
go
Set
through
the
my
tone.
little-
Set the tone for us. Set the intention.
Absolutely. Okay. Have you ever received feedback that felt harsh or unexpected? How did you process? What did you learn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Every time you get feedback, it feels harsh in the beginning, right?
I know. Even if someone really, really like plants a beautiful garden in front of you, I just see it as wreckage. I'm like, here I go. My confidence is shattered and I suck and I hate this.
I feel like giving feedback or criticism to a creative person is a bit of a dance. I don't expect everybody to understand this, but if you are like a fellow creative and you are used to putting stuff out there, you know that it's like, hey, why don't you just lead with what's good first
I agree.
before you immediately tell someone what's bad? Because, you know, it's hard. It's hard putting yourself out there. And when someone just like tells you the negative thing,
Or
it's
like,
hard, yeah.
is there a world where someone could be like, could you explain your process? Like, how did we come to this final product? Because sometimes I feel like the clarity of what you put out, like if someone just doesn't get it, or they're like, again, if they're not driving on the same freeway, it's like, you don't know, like maybe what the reference is. You don't know, like, where did this even come from? So sometimes I feel
Right.
like feedback feels like it's out of left field because the questions are like, the note is like, oh, you just like completely don't get what's going on here.
yeah.
And it's hard to not be like triggered in that moment to be defensive and rude back. But you're like, it's not their problem though that they don't understand. It's like your job as like the person that made the content to clarify and specify and like kind of reassure the situation, right?
Yeah, and I found when I was a creative director, I worked at Cameo. I'm not throwing anything under the bus here, but it was a huge change for me being in a tech company world where I'm the creative director. And for the first year there, I really struggled with feedback. And it was mostly because, and this is something that I learned, I was dealing with people that had a different goal than I did. And so the feedback that would come in would be them looking for their goal and immediately kind of like just giving me quick notes on it versus like telling me things that they did like about it. And, you know, like when I worked at BuzzFeed, starting that career there, and everybody is doing the same thing, like you have a mutual respect because you're all
Right.
making content.
Right.
You understand how to just kind of finesse the conversation and make it feel way more positive than just like, you know.
At BuzzFeed, were you guys doing feedback in person or was it like through the Slack channels?
So the process that we had was like when you would have an edit for a video, you'd throw it up on like a Dropbox type situation. You'd
Okay.
email it out to your direct team, which would be
Okay.
like 5 to 8 people. And everybody would then give comments and notes on that. And then you would do another cut or two from that. And then the leader of your team would then tell you to send it to final review, which would be like the 4 executive producers of BuzzFeed, and they'd give you final notes on it.
Okay.
But it was so much more of like a collaborative process. And the best thing that came out of it was the idea of the take it or leave it note.
Ooh, explain that to us.
So this is something that I feel like all creatives understand, but when you're working with a client or you're working in like in a job with mostly marketing or salespeople, they might not understand a take it or leave it note where that's essentially what it is. You don't have to take this note. It's more of a suggestion or a way of thinking of maybe this idea that I give you can help you jump off to the next idea.
Right.
Versus like cut that 20 seconds, or change that or do that, like where it's just super
it's
blunt.
Like, hey, have you thought about it this way? Or maybe if like this joke turned into that, it could be this. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, sometimes also you're just like too close to the project.
Yeah.
And you like can't like allow it to keep growing.
Right. So like
Because you're choking it.
yeah. And my first project that I did at Cameo was a video, and it was like they wanted to do a funny April Fool's video, which also I'm very anti April Fool's jokes from companies. Like it's played out, but I needed to make money as a job, so I was doing this. And I remember I sent out the script for review, and I made sure everybody know. I'm like, hey, give me notes on this script before I go and make it, because I was building this entire thing in After Effects. It was going to take hours and hours and hours of time.
Of course.
And people breeze through the script, go, yeah, this is great. I spend a week making this video. I send it out, and then everybody has these huge notes, and they're all script-based notes.
Quirky and fun.
And so I had to redo so much of this video, and it was driving me crazy. And after, hitting that process a bunch of times, I started to ask people about their situation and realizing that it's the creative's job to set the tone when looking for feedback, when
Ooh.
it's saying and asking pointed questions. Because sometimes when you send something and just go, hey, do you give me notes on this? You're just going to get an avalanche of notes of people who are just saying any little thing. Like I don't need sometimes like a note about a font choice from this person in legal. I need to know, like, does this hit the checkpoint of what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes like people get confused by that, and also understanding too where this video project was my life for a week, but it was just a small thought in the person's head who's giving the note. And the reality is they probably have 5 minutes in their day, and they're just quickly looking it over and just popping off some.
Yes. It isn't this like delicate, beautiful thing to them.
No. And so like I had to learn like to kind of train people on like what is helpful, what's not, and kind of giving these preemptive questions beforehand.
Of course.
And it never was a perfect situation, but I think it helped eventually, because it helped me knowing like where they're coming from, and then telling them where I'm coming from in a process. And so there was that. But like every time I got feedback from there, it was really harsh. I was super down on myself, and I felt like I was terrible at everything I was doing, but I wasn't. It was just
the moment.
Yeah. Also like written communication over verbal communication is so different, Sometimes
really is.
I know that like exclamation points in emails, it's frowned upon, but sometimes it helps. Love this video! Exclamation point. If it's a double exclamation point, wow, I'm feeling high. I'm feeling so good about myself. But if it's just like,
remote creatives too. It's hard when you're like trying to get clarification even on a project where you think you have everything in a line, and then you're like, everything is not in a line anymore. And the expectations have not been clearly communicated, and then the feedback is wild and bonkers, and you've wasted so much time.
Have you ever received harsh feedback? And
of course I've received harsh feedback. I feel like the thing okay, so one of a feedback that had seemed at the moment very harsh that actually led me to have a breakthrough as a human with a career was, so I started at a modeling agency quickly after I was working. I started as an assistant to the owner of a modeling agency. I'd been working there for a couple of weeks. Again, this person had never also, God bless her, had never encountered any human being like myself, which is like, again, very green at the time. And then going immediately and working like what I would say the jungle and being exposed to so many situations. But there's nothing, especially in a new job or like any job you ever have, like there's no other way to learn how to do the job than by doing the job. Like you're going to be thrown into the deep end. And I remember being assigned cold calling clients. I don't think I'd ever really talked to anybody on the phone, like in a professional setting. And it was very nerve wracking. And again, like you're calling Reef sandals, you're calling big brands like Rainbow, like things that I had been obsessed with my entire life. And I'm trying to find who's in charge of casting, what's going on. And a cute tick of mine back in the day, again, I had just graduated with a BFA in theater, is voices. And
Explain that. What do you mean, voices?
I guess it's like, I was unable to code switch when I would go to work. So like me in real life, like if I'm talking to Zach, I'm talking in a completely different voice. And so if I was nervous, I'd be like, oh, I'm not really sure. Like my voice would go up 66.
You kind of do characters, right?
Oh, full characters. Or I'll be like, I don't know, babes, what are we up to? And it's like, I can't, like I was like going into wild voices over the phone because so unsure of myself. I literally had never been put in this environment. And again, my boss at the time, who I still work with to this day, she is my longtime mentor, Jules Newmark. She is the nicer version of the Devil Wears Prada. But it's like when I first had that job, I was Anne Hathaway. Like I was a dweeb on the phone. And also there's nothing worse than talking on the phone and your boss is sitting right here.
Yeah.
So she'd be like, here are the numbers, go ahead. And she'd be typing on her computer, but like I would see her eyes dart over. But I'd be going in and out of voices. And at my
Can you give me like another voice you do?
Like I would hang up and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Like I would just go into things. I don't like accents but I think if you know me, it's not off-putting. In a professional setting, let's not serve the whole enchilada day one.
Maybe you've met someone that like does characters all the time and like at first it's a little like, oh, what's going on here? You're doing a lot of characters and then in a professional setting.
But this is why though, it's like you need to like day one, don't give your full self. Like let that shit come out in layers. Like I didn't need to be this quirky, weird theater chick. I'm sorry, day one.
But she gave you feedback about that?
So basically, after 2 weeks, she sat me down and she was like, I need to talk to you about some things. I was on the phone with her last night and we actually talked about this. And she said she tells this story all the time because it also gave her the confidence to give feedback, knowing that sometimes people just have literally zero idea that they're doing this. Like I was on the phone, I had no idea I was going in and out of characters like Jim Carrey. I was Morgan Carey, just like going for it. And she was like, listen, I know this is embarrassing. It's not easy to hear and it's okay if you cry. And I was like, already like, I'm being fired. Amazing. I've been here for 14 days and I'm a loser. And she was like, listen, you're such a fun personality. When we're on the phone with clients, watch the voices. And again, being a BFA in theater, I've been praised for voices.
Yeah.
This is my thing. Like I came out here to be an actor and now I'm like, I need to practice some professionalism. And she had pointed out something that I thought was like such a fun aspect of me, but it was like, we're going to save that for some different times. And we'll explore
You're doing a
that.
voice right now.
Oh my God. And then another voice, like now I'm sweating. But I think that feedback. Yes, did I get in my car that night and bawl profusely? Of course I did. She knew I did. She was like, if you need to leave early, because I was like,
I remember getting that phone call. You're just crying. You're like, I do voices. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
But yeah, that feedback, it was so hard to hear, but it legitimately has shaped the past 10 years of my life. It's something that made me better. Also, it's like, I do think we live in a world right now where if you're not getting feedback, you're not getting feedback. And if you're not getting feedback, you're not getting better. You're not aware of maybe some things that you do that are like, hey, like if you could just polish these few things, like you could be an incredible entrepreneur.
Right. And I feel like when you get feedback, sometimes like your natural gut instinct is they're just saying this to tear me down, not try to make me better, which is just like maybe that's just you and me. Maybe people are listening to this like, no, I love getting feedback. And in that case, good on you. But for the rest of us who don't,
who are like traumatized.
Yeah, it can feel like a personal attack. But really, it's like majority of people are going in with good intentions, just trying to make you better or make the project better, whatever you're doing.
100%.
And it's just always best to like err on that side
yeah.
of like, they're well-intentioned here.
I also loved the bluntness in which she approached me. I think sometimes it's either sometimes it's painful when it's too gushy and you're
Yeah.
like, don't sugarcoat this for me. Just tell me what is the matter and I can move on. And I think that's also another like reflex of mine is like, it's fixed. And I do that with you all the time where you're like, bro, just like listen to what I'm saying and we'll get past it. And I think my insecurity and like, I want it to be perfect again. And I'm just like, oh, no. I'll clean it up. But I think her bluntness and her continued bluntness with me in my life is one of the greatest. She's one of the greatest humans I know. Cause there's no hiding with her. And it's like, I think I seek out moments with her. I seek out work opportunities with her. Cause I know when I'm with her, I'm getting better.
Yeah. Feedback. It can be great. Okay, here's another one. How do you maintain your creative confidence when faced with negative feedback? So how do you maintain your creative confidence when you do have feedback? That's a tough one. It's tough like when you really believe in something and you show someone it and they don't get it. I think it's really important in those moments to, there's that saying that take what you want, leave what you don't.
Bridget Anderson moves.
Yeah. And other places. But like that is something that you kind of have to have that gut check with yourself of realizing like, all right, is this my ego talking when I'm like, no, this is perfect. Can you give yourself a chance to listen and see where someone's coming from? But
I
then
agree.
also knowing when that it's a take it or leave it note, regardless of whatever they're saying about it. Like you shouldn't take every note. I've had that before in a corporate situation where you get notes from 10 different people and they all expect you to take the note, but they all also contradict each other. One person's like, this needs to be longer, and another person says it needs to be shorter. And you're expected to make it work.
Like unless it's a note from your like direct superior boss, correct?
Yeah, but like even like sometimes when you're working with a client, I think that's something that is really tough. Like when you're going into this this world where you're getting paid, you're using your creative muscles and you're using your creativity, but not in an artistic way. You're using it in a corporate way to make money. And that's a really hard thing to deal with sometimes. There's the people that jump into the corporate world completely.
Yeah.
And they have kind of, maybe they've given up that artistic creative side. And there's people that are the artists forever that I will never work for, a conglomerate. And I understand that. Go do you. But I think there's a lot of us that are in the middle where we have our passion projects, we have our dreams, but we also have to be real and we have to go make money and work with these people.
Absolutely.
And knowing when, you're getting paid to do a job and it's the person who's paying it, it's what they want. At the end of the day, it's your job to try to make it as best it could be and show them sometimes where they might be short-sighted or they might be overstepping. But at the end of the day, you have to like let go sometimes. And that's difficult. That's difficult for me.
Do you feel like that could be also like what the difference is between feedback that fosters growth and then there's feedback that stifles growth?
For sure. You'll definitely work with people that, like I just said minutes ago, err on the side of good intentions and do that within reason. Cause there are also people that sometimes are a little power hungry, to put it nicely. And that you have to like realize like, no, they're wrong here. They're just doing it, or they're doing it to try to push themselves forward. Like there's nothing worse like when you're a creative person and you're working with someone and they gave notes on it once and then they get to present the entire thing and act like it's their idea. That always
love
feels
that vibe.
That feels terrible to deal with, but that happens all the time. And so, just be aware of those people. I think you can always, it's hard to do in a professional setting, but like if you're working with people that you like and you trust, those are the best people to get feedback from.
True. I also think like clarity is kindness. When like people are able to be as clear as possible. Also with like any project, I think as freelancers, sometimes it's really difficult because sometimes you pitch for a project, other times you're approached for a project. You think people are hiring you because of what you do best. And then you're expected then to kind of mold into what they want. And you're like, oh, like you could be a black and white photographer only. And they hire you because they want beautiful colored images. And you're like, oh, okay, sick. Like I was just under the impression
that you liked my work.
Absolutely. But I think I've learned so much with a lot of clients, again, of like asking asking as many questions as possible because there's no one to blame at the end of the day except for you, right?
Yeah. So a lot of people, obviously, it's kind of a joke that, professional creative people know that clients don't always know what they want. And I think they're going to tell you that half the time, like, I'll know it when I see it. And that is so difficult to deal with, especially with someone that's never been through the creative process. Or the worst is a person who hasn't really been through the creative process, but thinks they've been through the creative process.
We love
They think
that.
they know it, where they just see
Sure.
final products. And I mean, in my worst moments at jobs before, I've yelled, I'm like, you don't tell the chef how to cook a meal. Like I've been that person. I had to like mature in those situations, but there is something about that. But there's also people that go to a 5-star restaurant and they want no seasoning on the steak and they just want,
Ugh.
mashed potatoes without the mash. I don't know.
You
There's
know,
picky people.
we were going there. One of my favorite clients I ever got to work with was GT's Kombucha because they would buy so they'd be like, okay, Morgan, we want you to produce something. We want 100 images. We want it to be like summer fun. Like, and I would be like, okay, sick. I would pitch the models because I worked at a modeling agency. It was super easy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to hire my best friend photographer and we're just going to like rock this out. Again, it was like, hey, like, let us know like what imagery you want, what flavors of kombucha, the whole gag. My favorite thing about them is they would send a 100 shot list with every single picture and it would explain exactly what the photo was.
It was like very prescriptive. You liked that?
Part of me was like, there ain't no guessing here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like get crazy creative. Like it was one of those things where I was like, we're paid to do a job. Again, I didn't pitch this from like, this is my moment to share my like most creative invention here. Like I was very much like, you know what? Respect. It was an airtight shoot because, and I had my little highlighter. I was like, at this point, we're jumping into the pool and then we will have wet hair. Like, and then you would see the campaign roll out on socials. You'd see it roll out on the website and it was perfectly prescribed.
Yeah.
It was a plug and play.
Sometimes,
and it was a paycheck.
Yeah, that's like it's such a double-edged sword because like
Of course.
that's like the chance of like when you have someone that knows what they're doing and knows exactly what they want, that can be helpful. It's frustrating when people think they know what they want and then they're super prescriptive and you do what they want and they're like, this isn't what I asked for.
And the reason it was so positive is because they were blown away every time because it was exactly what they asked. But then, of course, there are times where you're given creative liberty and you're given some notes and then you have fun and it's all completely wrong. And they're like,
Yeah.
you didn't get this mood board? And we're like, never received the mood board. And it's like, oh, it was in the drafts. We never sent it. And you're like, quirky. So I have to now do that 8-hour day again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's always great. Do you have another?
I have another question.
Oh.
One of my things though too, like since you've been a creator, like creative director 3 different times, it's like I remember you read a book about creative directing and I feel like you really took those positions seriously. Again, you were coming from BuzzFeed, you're coming from another tech company where you were like making videos. But I feel like the day where I remember you becoming a leader of other creatives. And I really felt like your approach to that was so like genuine and earnest. I remember you like reading books on the weekend because you now were in a spot where you weren't the one necessarily receiving feedback. You were the one giving it.
Yeah.
What are some like, how do you give feedback in a professional setting? What did you learn? What are your takeaways? How have you seen it work the best?
So that book, one of the books I was reading is called Creative Directions by Jason Sperling. He was the creative director at Meta, like did a lot of like their VR stuff, had a bunch of other, he's worked for a lot of great companies. But the whole thing about that book is sort of like a crowdsourced book where he would write a little section about a topic, but then there'd be blurbs from all these other creative directors about their process. And so it kind of was showing that there isn't a correct way of doing it. There's just a bunch of different ways that you can find. But one of the biggest things that stood out for me in that book was the idea of when you become a creative leader, whether that be a creative director or a composer or a film director, whatever that is, the way that you get to that job is by being an amazing maker of things. You're physically, you are crafting things with your hands. And I'm a designer. I'm a video person. Like I like to make things, but once you get to a certain spot where you're a creative director, you don't make things anymore. You tell other people how to do it, or you inspire them and you give feedback on that.
Right.
And I think that's one of the hardest transitions about as you grow in your career. You're growing so then you don't have to do it anymore. And that's a really weird thing, because the making is what's so fun about it. And it's what you might be great at. And now you're asked to be sort of more of a manager and a coach of a team. And I think I had, it was helpful that when I was going through this creative director process, it was also when The Last Dance came out, the Michael Jordan documentary, and there was a whole bit of Steve Kerr there. Steve Kerr, he was like a 6th or 7th man on the Bulls team. He was this white guy shooter. He wasn't Michael Jordan. That's what I'm trying to say. But he was known. He hit this amazing shot to win a game. It's an iconic moment where Michael Jordan passed the ball to this guy and he hit the shot. Steve Kerr was never this amazing player, but now he's been the coach of the Golden State Warriors, and they've been this dynasty for the past 10 years. And he's an amazing coach. And he also trained under probably the greatest coaches in NBA history.
Right.
And it was that moment where realizing that I was so inspired by Steve Kerr of seeing like, you know what, like it's awesome to be that guy who hits the shot on the 96 Bulls, but for some people, it might be even better to be the coach on the Warriors and to let other people get their shine, and just knowing that you inspire them to get to that moment. And so that's how I try to approach being a creative director, is really like a coach. I'm a big sports fan, so it was an easy transition sort of for me to do.
Of course.
But giving feedback, that was something that I had to learn. And, even like being a director, sometimes I've directed, shows and shorts and all these different things. And when you're working with a lot of actors, something that's interesting is that people take feedback differently, and you have to know how to speak their language. At least for me, in finding that. So when I'd be on a set, and there's a scene with 3 people, and I need to give each person a note. Sometimes one person I know is a blunt person. Just tell them, slower.
Yep.
Another person, you have to give them their inspiration. You have to be like, okay, that feeling when you wake up and you're late for work, and that panic that you feel, you have to paint the picture for them. It's like, put yourself in that moment and see what comes out of the scene. You have to be gentle that way.
This.
And then other people, then there'll be like another person where you just have to do it in a completely different way. You have to like kind of half joking, like, because you don't want to ruin their confidence.
You're choking
and be like,
up the
oh
scene.
man, yeah, you're really doing terrible there. There's also times where I've had like moments too where someone's been bad in a scene, and maybe this helps because I've done acting too, where it's like, I know, when you're bad sometimes, and sometimes you just need to be like, that was so great. Brian, who is my DP on the show, who's also running cameras on here. I wish we could cut to him. We can't. Maybe do some iPhone footage. We'll throw up a picture of Brian right now. One of my choosing, one that he didn't pick. But I'll just show a picture of Brian.
I want the one of him ordering ribs from Major Domo.
Yeah. But something that I would do all the time is like, if an actor in a scene wasn't great in it, I would always blame Brian. I'd blame camera. And like I talked with him about it, where I'm like, hey, like half the time it's true, but I'm like, oh, sorry, we were soft on focus there. Can we just do it again? Giving someone an opportunity and knowing that you don't always have to give feedback, because people know it. And I think people can get in their heads.
That's kind of a beautiful thing too. Like sometimes let some air.
Yeah. But you do have to have that emotional intelligence to like understand how your team works. And that's why, to me, whenever I grew the creative team at Cameo, as I'm interviewing everybody, I was really interested in like their goal. What do you want to do? Do you want to be, and like, don't tell me the answer you think I want to hear. I want to know your actual goal. If your goal is you actually want to be an author of a book in the next 5 years, that's amazing. Now that I know that, I want to filter everything to help you try to achieve your goal through this job. And if someone is like, I want to be a CMO one day. I want to be head of marketing. Okay, amazing. I want to put you in positions that's going to train you to be better and learn lessons to get there. And so just knowing the people on your team and knowing like, what do they want? How do they take criticism and feedback? And obviously it's a dance. You have to learn this. And, I'm not trying to talk all high and mighty. I definitely fell short a bunch of different times, but I think it's really important that sometimes when you're the leader, you forget what it's like to be the maker. And so putting
Ooh.
yourself in that maker situation and knowing that every single person is unique, it's important. And Steve Kerr did that. Steve Kerr knew he coached Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. Sorry, he didn't coach them. He was on that team. But he learned that from Phil Jackson, who coached that. And now Steve Kerr on the Warriors was treating Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, coaches them all completely different. Just because that's how we are.
Absolutely.
Some people respond to things in different ways. And so I always try to be a little mindful of that. Obviously, it's hard when you don't have the chemistry with someone. But if you are in a team situation, I think it's really important to take that time to learn about the person and then figure out how can you filter it in the best way that's going to be as constructive for them. As long as your message is getting across, that's what matters. So
100%.
you just have to do a little more work of figuring out how to say it.
And what advice would you give someone, another creative, maybe like if this was someone on your team, even like it is really hard to receive feedback. Like, what could you say? Like, I feel like you're a very graceful person. I feel like I'm someone like as a leader, I really respect you. I obviously a lot of these jobs were remote, so I would hear you a lot. I feel like you're such a great leader. I feel like that's something that makes you such a good podcast host, because I feel like you lead with like grace, but you also lead with curiosity. But I feel like you know how to get the best out of people. And as someone who's like that, it's like you want the best for people. So it's like, what's your best advice for receiving feedback? And like, how can we all be a little bit better at that?
I think for receiving feedback is going in with curiosity.
Okay.
I think if you're going in with just a willingness, and like I said earlier, erring on the side of the person giving you feedback is coming with a good intention,
Yeah.
then you can try to think about it like, okay, what are they trying to say here? Because sometimes like you'll get feedback and it might not be communicated properly. I find this a lot. Like people will give feedback, especially in the corporate setting, where they will try to find the solution without fully explaining the problem. And it's your job to diagnose the problem and then you offer the solution. And so that might be a little confusing, but it's like someone will be like, you know, I don't think we should do this. Maybe we should just completely, and they'll throw an idea from left field out at you. And it's for me, taking feedback is to then talking to that person and going, okay, what is it that isn't working for you? What is that feeling that you have? What is that? Okay, if they're not connecting with this, oh, I understand now. It's like, sometimes it's as simple as like, oh, this first clip is just 5 seconds too long and they got bored.
Absolutely.
And now it changed their attitude. So now 20 seconds into the video, they are criticizing it, and it could be an easy solve. Or you completely missed something in the beginning and that wasn't clear enough in there. And I think like if someone is in a working situation, like, I mean, the big joke with designers is of clients just saying like, make the logo bigger. And I think that's what's really hard, because we all idolize, you know, Apple, the simplicity and,
Of course.
and looking at that. And then you have someone that's just like, no, I just want our logo smack dab as big as possible. And that's not actually what your eye is trained to look at. And there's a method to our madness. And so I find like when someone's getting feedback, if you don't agree with it, if you get mad about it, go outside and take a walk. The amount of times that I went outside and I was walking a lot. Anytime
really
I'm working
were.
and I walk a lot and trying to catch my breath and not act emotionally out of that, because it's tough as a creative person. You're an emotional person. That's what kind of like is your superpower.
Yeah.
And so when someone gives you feedback that you don't agree with, it can feel like a bruised heart.
Yeah. I feel like this is why like the Four Agreements is a super important book in our house. Like Miguel Ruiz, one of the main cornerstones of living is it's not personal.
Yeah.
Don't take it personally. And I think as creatives, again, like that book's written by someone who is very creative, who sees the world very spiritually and has like delve into a point where it's like you kind of can live past your ego.
Yeah. And
I think we try to practice that as much as we possibly can.
Exactly. Another little quick thing, like if you're at a job and you're working with a creative director or whatever, like it's really good for you to try to learn them as well and learn their process. Because really what it is just like when someone is giving you a bunch of notes, it's just a sign that they don't trust you.
Yeah,
And
learn
maybe
the game.
maybe they hired you because they liked, once again, the final product of what you did, and maybe you aced the interview. But then in the
Yeah.
process, because there's a miscommunication or something, there's a lack of trust there. And so do whatever you can to build up that trust. And that can mean even outside of the office. Maybe that's going and grabbing a
Agreed.
drink with someone, or maybe just, liking their LinkedIn post, something as simple as that, of knowing like, hey, I'm not your enemy here. I'm your friend. And
Absolutely.
so then you can understand a little bit more of like that shorthand with someone.
Ooh, I love the shorthand.
And I think like in a business situation, like everybody is going 100,000 miles an hour, at least at all the companies I've been at. It just feels like you're putting out a fire every single day.
Absolutely.
And so once you build up that trust and you learn that shorthand, you're not taking it as personal as much.
Absolutely.
But
There's also like a time and place when you're going to get to play your game your way.
for sure, if you build up enough trust, then as a leader, that's all I want is for someone. It would make my day so much better if at the end of the day, I didn't have to sit down and spend 30 minutes giving you notes on this graphic.
Agreed.
I want to build up that trust so then I can just look at it and go, cool, this is good to go. That's the best feeling when you know that. And that's something that I had with my designers and with my video editors, of working with them and understanding, hey, you got it, but like we need to learn. You got to learn the playbook if you want to play.
Hundo P. And to wrap us up, what is the most memorable piece of feedback you've ever received?
The most memorable.
And it could have saved your life somewhere.
I actually have one that would have changed the trajectory of my life.
Out with it.
So when I was at BuzzFeed, we did a fellowship, which was like a 3-month crash course of they teach you how to make
There were like levels
a
to
video.
like the BuzzFeed.
Yeah, it's
Explain
like you're
that
like
for people that don't know.
You do a 3-month internship and then you apply, and if you get accepted to a fellowship, you're basically like a junior video producer, where you're making a video a week, but you are also learning every single day. You're taking classes, you're learning the thought process behind BuzzFeed, and you're also being judged against your peers. So I was in a class I was one of 8 in this fellowship class, and every day we were reviewing our video, or every week we would sit down and review our videos and talk about them as a group. Cool. And it was cool, but it was also like you're very
Feedback City.
Yeah, you're very naked in that situation.
I'm scared.
But it was there. And so it gets to the time where basically I have 2 weeks left, and we're about to find out if they said like 3 of us are going to make it to become a full-time video producer.
Out of the 8?
Out of the 8. And
oh my
so you're either
gosh.
going to get a full-time job that was like well paying for me at the time. I was 23. I was the youngest video producer at BuzzFeed for a while.
Oh my gosh.
And you're either going to get that job or you're going to be out of work. It's really one of those things. And you're just finding out like if you're going to make the cut, like, did I make the team or not?
Oh my gosh.
And so we had our holiday party, and
those holiday parties,
they were crazy.
Were bonker.
And they were just awesome. BuzzFeed went all out. It's no shocking. It's like shocker that, they're not doing great in the money department, because they used to really do well.
They used to ball out. Remember when they gave you like iPad, they gave you a watch.
It was great.
Crazy stuff.
It was a prime time. The mid 2010s were crazy. But basically, it's about 1 a.m. and we're at the Roosevelt Hotel having a fun party, and my boss comes up to me completely tanked out of his mind, drunk, and he goes, "Hey, Zach, I'm not going to lie. You're on the bubble. I don't think you're going to get the job." And I was like, "What?"
Sobered up quick.
Yeah, and this person, I'm not going to say their name, but they are a public figure who maybe had some scandal. But they came up to me and they told me that, and immediately I sobered up. We went home, and I sent an email to the head of the video department at the time going, "Hey, can I meet with you?" And this was a Friday night. And I'm like,
gosh.
"Monday morning, can I meet you?" And he told me to come in at 7 a.m. So I sat down with him, and this is the head of videos, Andrew Gauthier, who I look up to. I think
you really talk about him all the time. He's made such an impact.
It was just the best boss I've ever had. He had the cool older brother energy, but also was just like wise beyond his years and knew how to communicate. I think I've always joked that whenever I'm leading a team, I'm just doing my best AG impersonation. But he sat me down And I told him, hey, I really want this job. I know I'm on the bubble. What do I have to do in the next 2 weeks? I know I don't have much time. And he sat down and he looked at me and he was like, all right, this is how I think of you. I think of you. And he knew I liked sports. So now I saw him in real time, like translate into my conversation. He's like, I think you're a franchise quarterback. You have the potential to be that we drafted with the first overall pick.
Okay.
But I got to be honest, your rookie season was really rough. You threw a lot of interceptions. I don't know if I can trust you. And so in order for you to build trust, I need you to do these 5 things. And he gave me these 5 things that felt borderline impossible.
Really?
He was like, I need you to crack a format. And it was very like,
you only had 2
like,
weeks
what are you
to
talking
do
about?
this.
Yeah, he's like, I need you to crack a format with relationships with men. Make a video about that and needs to do well. I need you to hit both videos, need to hit 1 million views in a week. I need you to, and then he gave me like 2 or 3 other things where it was very strict things, but it was like a numbers based thing where I had to just do my best to try to hit a number while also fueling my creativity. And he was like,
at this point, had you already been making videos with Justin?
no, this is where my first video with Justin came from.
Cracked.
I was like, so Justin and Quinta like were Quinta
Were
was
they
like
in
a
your
resident.
class?
No, Justin was a class ahead of me, and,
Okay.
and Quinta was like a resident that Justin brought in because they were friends. And I was
Okay.
I was in a couple of their videos just because like we were friends and doing that, but like he told me I had to crack this video on male friendship, and so I talked to Justin, and we had very big similarities. We liked the same things, and he helped me make this video. He was in a video with me,
Do you
and it
remember
was
which
like
video it was?
it was like this like weird things guys do to one up each other or something. And it was just showing how like guys are competitive with each other. But we had a big problem at BuzzFeed where men weren't sharing the videos. They weren't watching it. We had a predominantly female audience.
Of course.
And so they were tasking me to try to be that person and find like this male, bro-y kind of humor and stuff. But we did that, but long story short, I hit all of the 5 goals that Andrew said for me, and I made it to video producer.
Let's go.
And we all got like sweatshirts and stuff that when you made the cut, and he like shook my hand, and he was kind of like, I knew you could do this.
Yes.
And like kind of like, I forget the exact thing, but like kind of like called back on like the quarterback thing of being like, you're that. And so, and from then, I really had his trust. And
That's
by having that
beautiful.
trust and doing that, it fueled me to then continue to make different things and really kind of push the barrier of what I wanted to do. And obviously I found Justin, who was a huge collaborator for me. And then because of that moment, Andrew put me, Justin, and Quinta on a comedy team and trusted us to make videos together, and the rest is history. So that was a huge moment for me,
so
though.
iconic. Feedback literally saved your life.
It did. And and that was a situation where I had to go ask for it because luckily a drunk little birdie told me that I wasn't going to make it. And I asked for feedback, and it changed my life because I don't know where I would have been if I didn't get that job. My life would have been completely different.
Absolutely.
And I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the drunk little birdie, and I'm grateful for Andrew who told me and didn't sugarcoat it. He was straight up with me, and he kept his word just as I did. And that meant a lot to me.
I feel like that's such a good way to end talking about feedback on a positive note, and remembering that like feedback has the power to change the trajectory of our lives, and we should be more open to it.
We really should. People aren't just trying to diss you just to cut you down and make you feel bad. A lot of times they're just trying to understand.
Absolutely.
That's hard. I still struggle with feedback every day. Every day. Honestly, even after this podcast, I'm going to look at our crew and be like, how was that? And I'm just going to be bracing for impact.
Bracing for impact.
Yeah. So be kind in the comments.
Be kind in the comments.
Practice the things we talked about if you're going to comment something, and just,
Be sensitive. Be nice. Be
but
demure.
also, but yeah. But yeah. So, all right. Is that good for you? I think that's good for me.
That's great for me.
Do you have any last parting thoughts or?
No, I said mine.
That's great.
Feedback
I love that.
is so
I feel
sick.
good. I feel good.
We let that off.
We did.
I'm trying to go get some feedback now.
Yeah, let's go out and chase some feedback. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening to another episode, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
We know this. We know this. We know this. Disconnected, but doing what I was called to do. In tune, tuned in full pursuit. And I've seen what karma can do. So do good and let that good come back to you.